Okay, here we go. All right, everybody can please be seated. Tout le monde peut s'asseoir, s'il vous plaît. Because the only way we get to finish is if we get started. Why was he reading my bio the other day? Okay, everybody can take your seats. And when you sit down, you'll see a little package on your seat. That's a space blanket, emergency space blanket. Please feel free to open it up and put it around your shoulders. And when we're all done here, we're going to recycle these with to some of the shelters here in town. But feel free to open it up and put it around you and feel as warm as you can. As Laura Smith and Sarah Stewart are here with us as sign language interpreters. Off to my left, your right. Bonjour, good morning, shalom, and God morgen. Bienvenue au Monument national de l'Holocauste à Ottawa. Merci aussi à tous nos téléspectateurs qui se joignent à nous en direct d'un océan à l'autre. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, Your Worship, Mayor Sutcliffe, Chief Stubbs, distinguished VIPs, our partners, Brith, Canadian Heritage Center for Holocaust Education and Scholarship, Center of Israel and Jewish Affairs, Embassy of Israel, Jewish Federation of Ottawa, Yad Vashem Canada, the National Capital Commission, the Association for Canadian Studies in Metropolis Canada. Wow, that's a lot of groups. Thank you for all of your support, and thank you for your participation and being here today. And to all of you who braved the weather this morning. In 2005, the United Nations General Assembly designated January 27th as International Holocaust Remembrance Day. It honors the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, the largest Nazi concentration camp and death camp, where more than 1 million innocent people were systemically murdered during the Second World War. The National Holocaust Monument Committee, together with our partners, is honored to host this official commemoration on Tuesday, January 27, 2026, here at the National Holocaust Monument in Ottawa. We invite not only the Jewish community, but all Canadians to take a moment to reflect on the past and to mark this day as a day of not only remembrance, but continued action to eradicate antisemitism in each of our communities. The event will be live streamed and will be part of the national social media campaign, We Remember. I'm going to encourage people, not just when I finish speaking, but when anybody finishes speaking, to clap, get your hands warm. Feel free to stomp as well, okay? So we give people a real chance to try and keep moving and stay warm. I'd like to invite at this time the President of the National Holocaust Monument Committee, Annette Wildgoose, to welcome you.
This isn't so bad after all, is it? We've had a lot worse here. So, thank you. Bonjour, bienvenue, shalom. It's a special privilege for me to welcome the Right Honourable Mr. Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada, Premier Ministre de Canada, et Madame Fox Carney, to this your first official visit to the National Holocaust Monument. Bienvenue. I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. Nous exprimons notre gratitude et notre respect. Aujourd'hui, c'est une journée de souvenir de l'Holocauste. To our survivors and their descendants who are in these warming tents over here, it seems that saying thank you on each of these events is quite insufficient. Your continued example and willingness to attend our events, irrespective of the weather, at this sacred monument sets a very high example of the importance of memory. Without memory, we're merely dust on the surface of infinity. Rabbi Sachs. Most of us here today had family members who did not return from Auschwitz-Birkenau, Majdanek, Mauthausen, Treblinka, Theresienstadt, to name a few. I personally had 15 members of my mum's family who perished in Auschwitz and Majdanek. May their memory be a blessing. Our theme is the power of one. We're delighted to be partnering with the Embassy of Sweden. Un merci tout spécial à Ambassadeur Burgstaller ainsi que à votre personnel pour votre coopération. Please, if anyone requires any assistance, we have St. John's ambulance staff here on hand, as well as our therapy dog, Gemma. J'espère que vous allez apprécier les présentations qui vont suivre. Merci. Thank you.
This is great, eh? I see a number of you have decided to open up your space blankets and put them on your legs. Great idea. Feel free. I want to assure you all that when Andrea Friedman came up with the idea, the suggested theme of a power of one, it was well before our Prime Minister emerged as a world leader at Davos. Would you please welcome the Right Honourable Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada, to offer remarks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lawrence. Thank you, Annette. Thank you all for including me. I would like to thank the National Holocaust Committee, CIJA, the Jewish Federation of Ottawa, B'nai Brith, the Israeli and Swedish embassies for organizing this important event. And to Tibor, Judy, Joe, Ruth, Judy Bosloy, who's here on behalf of her mother, Vera, John Diener, on behalf of his father, Nathan, Lawrence, you here on behalf of your father, Annette, on behalf of your family. Thank you from all Canadians for your presence and for your witness. You have lived through the most horrific chapter of human history. Yet, again and again, you have chosen to bring those darkest memories to light, so that what happened will not fade into silence, so that what happened will never happen again. That is the power of one. One life, one voice, one choice to bear witness. And it's the responsibility of those of us who hear witness to truly listen, to reflect, and to act. The liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau exposed the scale of Nazi crimes to the world and became symbols of the horrors of the Holocaust, the guilt of the enablers. and the resilience of the survivors. Today we remember the consequences of ignorance, of hatred, and complicity. Today we acknowledge that looking away is not a passive act, but an act of betrayal. And from the MS St. Louis to the none is too many era, Canada too has our history of turning away. We must remember that history to ensure that we never repeat it. Nous devons nous rappeler aujourd'hui ces leçons. Le danger de déni et de l'indifférence face au mal. Et la prise de conscience que le mal rassemble à nouveau ses forces. Que la communauté juive est encore touchée par une résurgence dévastatrice de l'antisémitisme. Au Canada, des synagogues et des écoles ont été attaquées et certains ont tenté de minimiser ou de nier l'horreur de 7 octobre et voire de l'Holocauste même. Pardon. Bien que le monde ait à nouveau été témoin de la force et de la résilience impressionnante du peuple juif, il est de notre devoir de rebâtir un pays où le peuple juif peut vivre en toute sécurité, ouvertement et librement. And that's why, with the leader of the opposition, we are working together as parliamentarians to make it a criminal offense to intentionally and willfully obstruct access to places of worship, schools, religious and cultural and community centers. And we know that these laws are tragically necessary, but they're far from enough. Laws can deter acts of hate and punish them if they occur, but they can't prevent hate from taking root. Just as the absence of war is not peace, the absence of physical and verbal violence is not the same as truly living in Canada. We stand, all parties stand, with the Jewish community against hate. Legislation to combat hate, resources to protect communities through engagement with all Canadians to help build our society anew so that Jewish people are not merely protected, that they don't only not live in fear, but they participate fully in every aspect of Canadian life, because that's when Canada thrives, when all thrive. The responsibility to confront anti-Semitism belongs to all of us. That responsibility begins with remembrance. As Elie Wiesel warned, that to forget the dead would be akin to killing them a second time. Canada will remember, because our remembrance is vigilance, so that never again is always true. Our duty is deliverance from intimidation and hate. And our goal is transcendence, an open society where all can flourish. Thank you very much.
I want to invite this is always the challenging part of the ceremony, invite the Holocaust survivors to light candles in memory of those who came before us. Off to my right, your left, are the candles to be lit by Professor Emeritus Tibor Egerváry, Hungary. We got the electric candles this time. Good move. John Diener, son of Holocaust survivor Nathan Diener, in the Ukraine. Judy Young Drake from Hungary. Joe Gottdenker, Poland. Judy Bosloy on behalf of Vera Gara, Hungary. And Ruth Katz, Floralove, on behalf of Ruth Katz, Germany. Thank you. You may be seated. This is far from his first rodeo. He's been a regular attendant here at this ceremony for the last several years. Would you please welcome the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, Pierre Poilievre.
Prime Minister, I'm joined today by the Deputy Leader of the Conservative Party, Melissa Landsman, who is here not only in that capacity, but also to honor loved ones and family members. Shalom, everyone. Over 80 years ago, Allied forces liberated the victims of the Holocaust at the largest and most lethal of all camps, Auschwitz-Birkenau. At least 1.3 million people were forced into that camp alone. 10,000 would die every single day in the peak of the killing at that location. For the 1.1 million killed, most of them were Jews. Of the 1.1 million, most of them were Jews. The remains today are a witness, a demonstration, a tomb for all that came before and all that suffered so much. But it didn't begin overnight. The moment the Nazis seized power, they launched a campaign of repression and terror against the Jewish people. They attacked businesses and synagogues, destroying thousands in the Kristallnacht alone. The Nazis spread their vile hate first through depravity of deportations and ghettos, and ending in the horror of the Holocaust, the monstrous genocide of the Jewish people. At least 6 million would be dead. This would be an almost unimaginable 2/3 of Europe's entire Jewish population. Today, we remember the millions of innocent lives stolen by the ugly Nazi ideology, and we honor the survivors who endured unimaginable starvation, torture, and loss. As time passes, fewer survivors remain among us to share their stories. So, we must ensure that we tell their stories for them. The generations to come across the world remember the depravity of the Holocaust. Lorsque j'ai eu l'occasion de visiter Auschwitz, j'ai vu des enfants juifs empilés, pierre sur pierre, pour créer des mémoriaux improvisés. C'est un geste simple, mais chaque pierre nous rappelle que les nazis ont échoué, que le peuple juif est toujours là et que nous n'allons jamais oublier. Nous ne pouvons pas ignorer le fléau de l'antisémitisme qui existe encore aujourd'hui. Le 7 octobre, il y a 3 ans, nous avons appris qu'il y a toujours de l'antisémitisme à travers le monde. Heureusement, la guerre est enfin finie. Le dernier otage vivant est resté chez lui en octobre dernier. Le dernier corps a finalement été repatrié hier. Mais nous n'avons pas vu la fin, malheureusement, de l'antisémitisme qu'on voit à travers le monde. Le peuple juif est victimisé encore et encore après les crimes des événements du 7 octobre. When I had the chance to visit Auschwitz personally, I saw Jewish children laying one rock on another. This is in keeping with the Jewish tradition of putting a stone on top of a grave marking as a way of saying, we're still here. We haven't forgotten you. We still love you. It's a simple act, but each stone reminds us that the Nazis indeed failed, that the Jewish people are still here and they still remember. We cannot still ignore the scourge of ongoing anti-Semitism. After the attacks of October 7th, which victimized the people of Israel and indeed Jews all around the world, that victimhood, that meanness, that cruel anti-Semitism compounded itself. The victims themselves became the target of mass protests and constant denunciations for the crime of existing at all. Too often, anti-Israel sentiment morphs into anti-Semitism outright. We see this in the 3 synagogues in Halifax that were vandalized. In Montreal, thugs firebombed the Bet Tikva synagogue twice in 2 years. In Vancouver, criminals targeted the Shara Sadek, the largest Orthodox synagogue in Western Canada, in an attempted arson during evening prayers. And now these attacks have forced that synagogue to spend $1 million that could otherwise be going to helping people in need just to secure the facility. And just last fall, in this very city, someone stabbed a Jewish woman wearing a Star of David necklace while she was simply shopping at a grocery store. This wave of anti-Semitism has spread around the world. En Australie, 2 tueurs ont massacré 15 innocents et ont blessé 40 autres. Parmi les victimes figurait Alexandre Clément, un survivant de l'Holocauste, âgé de 87 ans. Il avait survécu au génocide perpétré par Hitler pour finalement être emporté par le même antisémitisme qui a pu se développer ailleurs. In Australia, 2 killers massacred 15 innocent lives, injuring 40 more on Hanukkah at Bondi Beach. Among the victims was Alexander Clement, an 87-year-old Holocaust survivor who died protecting his wife. He survived Hitler's genocide to be taken by the same anti-Semitism so many years later. These tragedies remind us of the importance of standing every day and every way against anti-Semitism. Today's anti-Semitism, regretfully, is more top-down than bottom-up. It is spread through university faculties and other educational institutions which teach people to fear and hate Israel. It is spread through grants by our own government to so-called anti-racist groups and individuals who themselves spread anti-Semitic hatred and tropes across the country. We must ensure that this never happens again. We must stand up for the right of Jews to live safely, peacefully, and openly, with the Star of David on their chest, with the mezuzah on the door, with the kippah on their heads, proudly proclaiming their Judaism and celebrating who they are as both Canadians and Jews. When we do that, and when every single Jew feels safe and accepted in this country, then, and only then, will we have lived up to our oath, never again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Pierre mentioned the importance of the placing of stones, and we'll be asking you, everyone, when you leave, to do just that, to place a stone in memory and to symbolize that you have visited those who perished in the Holocaust here today. It's now my pleasure to call upon His Excellency Ambassador Ido Moed, the Israeli ambassador, to offer remarks. Ido?
My God, may it never cease. The sand and the sea, the rustling of the tides, the lightning on the skies, the faith in humanity. This is the original version of the poem by Hannah Senesh that has become the unofficial anthem of the Jewish people. Set to music, it's sung often at events such as this one and is known commonly for its opening words, Eli, Eli, my God, my God. These words of psalms repeated in the Christian Gospels are words of despair and of abandonment. Inspired by a walk from her home in the Holy Land, they were transformed by Senesh to words of wonder and of faith in humanity. She would not live to see their publication. She would instead be captured, tortured, and murdered in a failed mission to rescue fellow Jews from Nazi-occupied Hungary. The same population that Swedish diplomat Raoul Wallenberg and his courageous staff would succeed in saving in the thousands. Today, we mark the victims of the heroes of the Holocaust, those who fell and those who rose to rescue and to liberate, humanity's hope, who fought for liberty and freedom. On the sands and on the seas, like lightning on the skies. Today, we are mindful of the debt we owe to the victims and to the heroes, of the debt owed to the past and to posterity. We are mindful that ancient seeds of hatred have been unearthed from the past to be sown anew, of vile tides rising and repeating, of the blood libels resurrected, false charges of murder now evolved to genocide. On October 7th, Jewish blood once again soaked the sands of the Holy Land. And with the Jewish homeland for its excuse, antisemitism flooded streets and institutions the world over. Here in Canada, Jews witnessed their government appease the perpetrators with recognition and were reminded of terrible lessons from history. Here in Canada, Jews have come to fear for their safety and for their liberty in a north seemingly less true, less strong, less free. A Jew is stabbed in the nation's capital for the crime of being Jewish. In Montreal, a man is beaten before his children for the same crime. This monument defaced with anti-Semitic propaganda. Jewish institutions and places of worship fired upon and set ablaze across the country. The Nazi Hakenkreuz spread over Winnipeg's Jewish school and synagogue. In Toronto, anti-Semitic protesters invade and intimidate residential Jewish neighborhoods unopposed. Ontario school boards adopt openly anti-Semitic policies, ignore Jewish identity, and push biased political agendas. According to the 2025 BRIM report on anti-Semitism, in Ontario's K-12 schools, anti-Semitic incidents are numerous, widespread, and systemic, with just under 60% linked to the Jewish homeland and over 40% calling for the return to the Holocaust. Nearly 1 in 6 incidents were initiated or approved by a teacher. Eli, Eli, my God, have we been forsaken? But rather than despair, we are today reminded the Jewish people are restored to our ancestral home. And around us, here today, we see the ingredients of Senesh's faith in humanity. We see the potential, once again, for a coalition of like-minded nations dedicated to education in the face of intolerance, to liberty and freedom in the face of hatred and terror. Together, like Hannah Senesh, transforming despair to wonder and to faith. Together by God, ceaseless as the earth and the skies, and the tides and the skies, the hope of humanity.
Toda rabah, Yiddo Moed, Ambassador. To my right is something that has been created by a sculptor who is here today. Il est ici aujourd'hui. Il s'appelle Sylvain Séguin. And for those of you who would like to know the story of hope, the name of the sculpture, Espoir, le nom c'est Espoir. Vous pouvez le voir après la cérémonie. You can see the story of hope by Sylvain Séguin at the end of this event. I'd like to welcome Her Excellency Ambassador Signe Bergstaller from the Embassy of Sweden, who's partnered with us in this event. Please come forward.
Prime Minister, Leader of the Opposition, members of the National Holocaust Monument Committee, survivors and descendants, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, what an honor it is for the Embassy of Sweden to co-partner on this event today. We gather today at the National Holocaust Monument to honor the memory of the 6 million Jews murdered during the Holocaust and the millions of other victims of Nazi persecution. We gather to remember and to reflect on the responsibility that remembrance places on us. Remembrance is inseparable from action. 26 years ago, the Swedish Prime Minister at that time, Göran Persson, took an initiative grounded in this responsibility. On 27th January in the year 2000, Sweden convened the Stockholm International Forum on the Holocaust, bringing together heads of state and government, scholars, educators, and Holocaust survivors. The purpose was clear: to strengthen international cooperation on Holocaust education, remembrance, and research, and to reaffirm a common commitment to truth and historical responsibility. The outcome of that forum was the Stockholm Declaration, which later became the foundation of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, IHRA. Thank you. The Stockholm Declaration states that the Holocaust fundamentally changed the foundations of civilization and that its universal lessons must be preserved for future generations. It stresses the shared commitment to commemorate the victims of the Holocaust and to honor those who stood against it. Importantly, the declaration was never intended as a conclusion. It is not a document of the past, but a living commitment, a compass. A compass that guides us at a time when antisemitism is once again on the rise, manifesting itself in new as well as familiar forms. At a time when digital technologies amplify disinformation and historical distortion, and at a time when the need to defend the truth is more important than ever before. These developments underlined the continued relevance of the IHRA's work and the enduring responsibility of its member countries to translate memory to responsibility and responsibility to action. For Sweden, this responsibility is closely connected to the legacy of Raoul Wallenberg, a Swedish diplomat whose courage and moral clarity saved tens of thousands of Hungarian Jews during the Holocaust. And Wallenberg's actions remind us that individual responsibility and action matters, especially in the darkest of times, the power of one. The legacy of Raoul Wallenberg also binds Sweden and Canada together by naming his Canada's first ever honorary citizen. This country confirmed a shared commitment to the values he embodied: human dignity, civil courage, and the defense of those who are persecuted. The legacy is not only remembered, it is carried forward in different ways. One way is through the Young Courage Award established by the Raoul Wallenberg Academy that recognizes young people who demonstrate moral courage in our time, young people who stand up against antisemitism, racism, and discrimination, and who defend human dignity through their actions in their local community. And Canada is one of 11 countries who are participating in this international award program, and the annual nomination process is currently ongoing. This award and similar initiatives send an important message to the young generation that remembering the Holocaust is not solely about the past. It is about safeguarding democratic values, human dignity, and respect for human rights today and tomorrow. So on this Holocaust Remembrance Day, we reaffirm our commitment to uphold truth and take our responsibility. We remember the victims, we honor the survivors, and we renew our resolve to ensure that the lessons of the Holocaust are neither forgotten nor distorted. Thank you.
I think that deserves a standing ovation. What do you think? Feel free to stomp and clap. Thank you so much, Shard. Our next speaker, I would like to invite Mina Cohen, who's the chair of the Center for Holocaust Education and Scholarship, come forward and offer remarks on the iWalk digital program. We're about to hear all about it. Mina, come on up.
Honorable guests, as a daughter of two Holocaust survivors and the chair of CHES, the Center for Holocaust Education and Scholarship, I thank you for standing here together in remembrance and in hope. CHES' primary mission is Holocaust education. All our programs aims not only at teaching and preserving the memory of the Holocaust, but also to combat antisemitism and racism. Our mission, our most recent initiative that advances this goal is the National Holocaust Monument iWalk app, a unique interactive educational tool developed by CHES in partnership with Liberation 75 and the USC Shoah Foundation, and funded by the Government of Canada, the Canadian Race Relations Foundation, and MUSPIC. The monument, designed by a world-renowned team, is beautiful and haunting. But it had struggled to attract visitors, and those who did visit left without fully understanding the meaning behind what they saw. The iWalk app was developed to enhance the experience of visitors to the monument. It offers an interactive, bilingual guided tour designed to deepen the understanding of the Holocaust and combat antisemitism. It focuses on the monument's existing images. One of them you're facing right now, and when you look at it, ask yourself, do you understand the meaning behind it? The monument was designed by a team that wanted to impart knowledge. The monument design is focused on these 6 images, its symbolism, as well as it augments the overall experience of the history of the Holocaust, and the voices and testimonies of 17 Holocaust survivors who made Canada their home. It offers 2 streams, one for educators and one for visitors. Accessible on location and virtually via mobile devices, the National Holocaust Monument app can be downloaded using a QR code available at the back on a sign that is next to the blue panel. The monument, built as a place of reflection and warning, has not been immune to the very hatred it seeks to confront. Last June, as we prepared to launch the I Woke Up, the monument was defaced, reminding us the urgent and unfinished work that we still have. As we leave here today, may we carry with us not only the memory of the victims and the survivors, but the resolve to ensure that the hatred we confront in our community, is never met with silence and indifference. Thank you.
Never had to deal with a snow-covered podium before, but this is great. Mina, thank you so much. I want to mention that given the weather, I think the Rabbi Sher and Joel Diener had this idea about asking people to bring warm clothing for those in need, and we want to thank all of you who brought clothing, mitts and hats and socks, and in particular Eddie Bauer, Bayshore, who donated 10 boxes of warm clothing to the backpacks for the homeless. Hear, hear. Our next speaker is the CEO of the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs. Please welcome Noah Shack.
In 1942, Joe Gottdenker's mother was forced to hide her baby boy with a Polish Catholic family, the Jolos, who risked execution to protect him on their family farm. Joe survived thanks to their courage and humanity. Reunited with his parents after the war, he built a bright future in this great country. 15 years ago, at a Holocaust memorial ceremony here in Ottawa, the Jolos' granddaughter Betty was asked the question on everyone's mind: what motivated them to risk it all to save Joe? Her answer revealed something extraordinary. It was simply the right thing to do. Their principled heroism forces an uncomfortable but necessary question. What would any of us gathered here today have done? It's a powerful, personal question, but one without impact if it is only counterfactual. The question on this Holocaust Remembrance Day is, what will you do now? As the precious few remaining survivors warn us that what they see in Canada, once the land of their dreams, brings back the nightmares of their childhood. When for the first time in Canada's history, Jews are contemplating migration from this country that we have helped to build because of the hate targeting us. And when we stand here, just 20 minutes away from the supermarket where a Jewish grandmother was viciously stabbed while shopping for groceries. What will you do now? Canada today is not Poland of 1942. The threats and choices that we face are not those faced by the Gottdenkers and the Jolos. But when calls for violence against Jews are shouted openly without consequence, when Jewish Canadians are harassed and intimidated when we gather, when children are bullied at school and parents discriminated against at work, when synagogues are firebombed and schools shot, when our national Holocaust monument is defaced, when Canadian flags are burned and in our streets, terrorist groups pledged to murder us are praised, when the promise of Canada is under threat, it is time to answer this question without equivocation. What will you do now? If we want a safer, stronger country for all Canadians, each of us must learn the lessons from the past, draw courage from the Gottdenkers and the Jolos, and act decisively against hate, extremism, and violence to safeguard our future. Thank you.
I'd like to invite Adam Silver, President and CEO of the Jewish Federation of Ottawa, to come forward and offer remarks. Adam?
Good morning. Jewish Federation of Ottawa is committed to preserving the memories and lessons of the Holocaust, to honoring its survivors and heroes, and to working with our partners and allies in building a caring, empathetic, and more accepting world. It is an honor and privilege for me to be here to mark International Holocaust Remembrance Day with you, as well as share some words about a person who embodies this year's theme, the power of one. Bert Shinwell was born in Glasgow, Scotland in 1925, the youngest of 3 children. After a challenging time for his family during the start of the war, Bert eventually followed his brother and enlisted. According to testimony from Bert, he couldn't wait to go fight the Nazis. As a Jew, he felt this was our war to fight. Bert was assigned to tank training and eventually participated in a platoon with amphibious tanks. Bert's platoon was part of the first group that arrived in Bergen-Belsen to liberate the prisoners there. In testimony, he describes the awful state of the survivors, as well as a feeling of helplessness, noting he and his team did not have the appropriate items to provide care. Shortly after Bert's arrival, other platoons followed with specialists who could assist the survivors, bringing food and other necessities. As a young man, Bert was compelled to enlist and to fight for what was just and right. In doing so, he participated in various battles, including the Battle of Normandy, as well as the liberation of Bergen-Belsen. In his own way, he lived and breathed this year's theme, the power of one. I personally know Bert Shinwell and his late wife Myra as friends of my family and part of our extended synagogue community from when I lived in Toronto. They attended family simchas, and I would see them in shul, in synagogue, both with smiles and kind eyes, and I recall Bert at that time being especially charming and kind. Into his 80s, Bert volunteered as a transportation chaperone with Circle of Care, a social service agency for seniors in Toronto, escorting Holocaust survivors and other seniors to appointments and events, bringing the same warmth and charm. At that time, I was the executive director of the Battelle Center and would see Bert from time to time with some of our members, all of whom were very glad to be in Bert's care. Now 100 years old, Bert continues to be a wonderful dugma, an example for others, continuing to demonstrate kindness and care. I'm sure his local Ottawa family, the Schachters, are incredibly proud of him and his story as a person and a hero. The world can use more Bert Shinwells, and I believe Bert's actually watching online, so hello, Bert. As we continue to mark today as a reminder, a commemoration, and an inspiration for us to work toward a world without antisemitism and hate, we remember the millions murdered in the Holocaust, we honor the strength and resilience of our survivors, and like Bert Shinwell, we commit to find our own power of one, to be the heroes and champions our world so desperately needs. May the memories of those murdered be for a blessing, and may we all find our own voices and ways to make a positive impact. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. I'd like to ask you to welcome Simon Wolle, the CEO of B'nai Brith Canada, to offer remarks. Simon?
We gather here today not only to remember the Holocaust, but also to confront a question it still places before every generation. What can one person do? Une seule personne peut faire une différence. Nathan Diener was born in 1924 in Poland. He was born to a poor family, but one rich in love, faith, and hope. He was a child that went from public school to Hebrew school every day. He learned all about working with the cattle from his father and learned a trade from his uncle. He was a child who believed that the world could just be made better by human hands. But then the world collapsed. Nathan watched as his town was occupied, his family torn apart, and his sisters murdered at Belgique. He watched his mother forced to dig her own grave. And later, he himself was forced to sort through the clothing of the murdered and recognized the clothing of his own mother. Now, this is where the power of one begins. When a labor camp fence was cut open, it was Nathan who encouraged his father to escape. When the war ended, he was told to return east, and one woman, a neighbor, told him it was still too dangerous and not to go. And that in turn saved his life. The single act of one person's courage changed everything. Un seul acte de courage a tout changé. Nathan rebuilt. He chose life. He came to Canada. And today we confront dangers in Canada that not only demand clarity, but caution. In recent years, we've witnessed hatred that we never imagined would return to our streets, to our communities, to our schools, to our public spaces. We call on leaders to confront antisemitism wherever it appears, online, on campuses, in our streets, and to understand that hatred, left unanswered, always grows. So let us remember the power of one child who took decisive action, the power of one neighbor who helped a friend, the power of one Holocaust survivor who rebuilt. Soyons unis. May we never forget that the future is shaped again and again and again by what one person decides to do. C'est ainsi que le futur se construit, une personne, une décision courageuse à la fois. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. I'm going to go a little off script here. Speaking of Nathan Diener, we probably wouldn't be here sitting today at the National Holocaust Monument but for the fact that Joel Diener, who's going to give me a hard time after this because I've mentioned his name, he's not one who ever seeks recognition for what he does, but he is the person who thought it was important that we all begin to gather at the National Holocaust Monument as a place for these type of events and also for people to learn about the Holocaust. And Joel is a co-chair of the National Holocaust Committee, and he's also the guy who organizes all of the volunteers who put out the chairs and put away the chairs, and we're going to gather up all of the space blankets and do all the other things that enable this event to happen. So if you would please recognize Joel Diener and the volunteers that help make this event happen. Thank you so much. I'd like to welcome Jack Jedwab, President of the Association for Canadian Studies in Metropolis, Canada, to offer remarks on Holocaust distortion.
Friends and colleagues, the Right Honourable Prime Minister of Canada, Leader of the Official Opposition, distinguished guests. Today we remember the 6 million Jewish men, women and children who were murdered through a systematic campaign of hatred and indifference. We remember because the Holocaust shows us what humanity is capable of when conscience is silenced and barbarism is normalized. Our remembrance today carries unprecedented urgency. The survivors, the living witnesses are leaving us. Each year, there are fewer voices who can say, I was there. Fewer who can answer denial, not with argument, but with lived truth. And as their numbers diminish, the denial and distortion grow. It's no coincidence. Survivors spent their lives carrying unbearable memories, so future generations would not carry ignorance. They testified, they taught, they spoke publicly at great personal cost, not for themselves, but for all of us. Today, we must fight to ensure that memory does not evolve into abstraction, distortion, or denial once they are no longer here to confront the lies. A soon-to-be-released national survey reveals that 4 in 10 Canadian university students believe it is not anti-Semitic to say that the Holocaust is a myth or that it has been exaggerated. That statistic should unsettle us deeply. It tells us that remembrance is not keeping pace with forgetting and that the truth is being challenged by distortion. C'est pourquoi la commémoration de l'Holocauste ne peut être disassociée de la lutte continue contre l'antisémitisme et le racisme. La haine commence par des mots, par des stéréotypes, par l'érosion de l'empathie et de la vérité. L'antisémitisme prospère lorsqu'il est banalisé, excusé ou ignoré. For me, this day is also deeply personal. My mother was a survivor of Auschwitz. Last year at this time, I was on the grounds of the death camp in memory for my mom. She carried that history as a living reality. It shaped her silences and her strength. She did not survive so that her suffering would be forgotten, softened, or questioned. Her survival helped us ensure the memories of victims and survivors that they would endure. At this time last year, I said a final goodbye to my mom. With her passing, I feel more deeply what it means to lose a witness. Her voice and that of millions of other victims and survivors are why we're gathered here today. As long as we remember, the victims cannot be erased. And as long as we carry the stories forward, we can still ensure that the lessons they conveyed are understood. Let us ensure that her battle was not in vain, and that today, the power of one is also the power of many, that we together have the ability not only to preserve that memory, but to ensure that lessons are retained and passed on, that we must continue. Il faut continuer à combattre l'antisémitisme et à combattre le racisme dans toutes ses formes. Et aujourd'hui, ce n'est pas juste le pouvoir d'un, mais c'est le pouvoir de nombreuses qui va nous permettre de faire face à des défis sans précédent. On ne devrait pas permettre l'Holocauste à continuer à être nié ni distorsionné. Merci beaucoup. May my mom's blessing be in memory. And as I said, it's not only the power of one, but the power of many. Zikrona livrara. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Well, we've actually gotten through all the speeches. And now we move to the prayers. Rabbi Idan Sher, there you are, right in front. How could I miss you? Thank you.
At this point, we will continue to the traditional Jewish memorial prayer, a prayer of memorial for all the millions, an unfathomable number of individuals, each a world unto themselves, who perished in the Holocaust, and a prayer of memorial for all who have perished since, as the lessons of the Holocaust so often remain unlearned. And we recite this prayer not just as a prayer of memorial, but as a call that demands our attention, a call to reflect on the power of one, and with the power of lessons learned, each as an individual bring light into this world, a light that as a collective light will begin to dispel the darkness that we are experiencing, so that the memorial prayer that we are about to recite together becomes a prayer of memorial for events of the past, and no longer tragically relevant as it seems to be to the present moment. So at this point, we will ask everyone to please rise as we recite the Kaddish. Yiskadal v'yiskadash shemei Rabbah, Bi'alma divrach Yerusei v'yamlich malchusei, v'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol beis Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shemei rabba mevarach li'olam u'yolmei olmaya. Yisbarach v'yishtabach v'yispa'ar v'yisromam v'yisnaseh v'yishadar v'yishale v'yishalal shemei dekudsha berichu le'ela min kol berchasa v'shirasa tushbechasa v'nechemasa da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Thank you, Rabbi. Call on Cantor Green to come forward. There you are. Ô Canada, terre de nos aïeux, ton front est saint de fleurs en glorieux. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Kolod balevav penima, nefesh Yehudi homia, ulfate mizrach kadima, ayin letzion Sophia. Od lo avda tikvatenu, hatikva bat shnot alpayim, liyotam chofshi be'atzenu Eretz Tzion v'Yerushalayim, liyotam chofshi be'atzenu Eretz Tzion v'Yerushalayim. I want to thank everybody for coming and for being here in this circumstance, in this weather, in this place. We have looked at the power of one, and I hope that we will all take that empowerment away with us today. J'espère que tout le monde va prendre le pouvoir d'une personne et de continuer la lutte, to continue the battle, continue the struggle. I'd like to invite all of the speakers, Prime Minister, the guest speakers, and VIPs to come forward for the traditional photo op. Again, thank you all for being here today. Merci beaucoup pour tout le monde. Toda rabba.